that's where I sort of encountered the bush and how that's kind of really influenced my work, and I'll just touch on that a bit later. And then I moved to Sydney with my mum when I was 16, and then that's where, once I left school, I went to East Sydney Tech, and that's where I sort of gained a real formal education that was based on sort of technical skills to do with art and how to execute things in a very sort of proficient way. And then once I graduated from the East Sydney Tech, I went to Sydney College of the Arts, and that's where I sort of really learned about sort of the conceptual side of making work and sort of thinking in new and divergent ways. And my teacher there at the time, Tom Arthur, really gave me an understanding into installation art, which is sort of kind of like an art that creates a whole environment within a gallery space, so something that you sort of immerse yourself into. And he also taught me about sort of techniques such as assemblage kind of work, where you, something like the surrealist or the Dadaist would use, where you sort of find a lot of found objects and make a whole sculpture out of that. So I think that kind of discipline comes into my work as well. So once I graduated from Sydney College of the Arts, I went travelling a lot, and that again helped me a lot with thinking outside the square. And particularly I found when I went to Mexico and India, that I found that I really was influenced by the kind of imagery of nature that sort of infused their religious artwork. So for me, I really concentrated on abstract organic forms such as flowers and petals, and making them into really large sculptures. And because at that point too, I was really making work on an intuitive level as well, and just responding to those organic forms on an intuitive level. And so from there, I went to creating these kind of these sculptures that were made out of tree branches and chopping them up and reconfiguring them into these sort of organic forms. And then and so it was a way of, in that sense, I was like mutating nature, and I was really interested in the way actually like man could manipulate nature. So that's what I was kind of presenting in the gallery spaces at that time. And I was also just, while I'm thinking, if anyone has any questions or wants to stop me at any point and ask questions, or even disagree with what I'm saying, please do, because I just want this to be quite informal, so feel free to at any stage. So at that point, while I was making these sort of abstract organic forms, I realised that I really wanted to sort of bring a narrative into my work, because I was working on that intuitive level. I was also really started becoming fascinated with the way I'd see in the world around me unconscious sort of placement of objects, that people might just put one object against another just hurriedly and just leave them there. And what I would see is how are these sort of really unrelated objects talking to each other. The way I was looking at them was like they're suddenly talking to each other. There's something I want to investigate there, and there's something I want to really bring out in my artwork. So along with that, what was happening to me at the time too is that I was noticing I was having these sort of real visions when I was in a sort of a hypnagogic state and a hapnagogic state. And what that means is it's a state where when you're just falling to sleep and you're in that sort of half conscious, half unconscious state, and then you also have, when you're waking up, that same process again. And I found that kind of state was very liberating for my mind, because all these sort of disparate images and thoughts and ideas could just flow into each other, and that's where a lot of kind of ideas could sort of collide and marry as well. And I just come up with these sort of visions and think, wow, what does this mean? And I just want to just run with that, even though I wouldn't know what it means until maybe I I completed the work, and even when I completed the work, I still didn't know exactly what it was saying. I just enjoyed that process of delving into your imagination and your unconscious. So at that point, where I decided to do something more narrative, that was about in 2005, where I had first exhibited this piece here, Mimicry. And how that came about was a really good example of that sort of fascination, unrelated objects. One day at work, I saw, because it was around Christmas time, there was sort of these antlers hanging on a post, and off that post was a lantern. And that just, for some reason, just captivated me in a very intuitive way. And so I thought, okay, well, that's a really good starting point. So I decided, okay, well, obviously antlers, I'll put the rest of it with it, the head and so forth, and I'll put the lantern with that as well. And then I thought, well, I really want to add some mystery to that, and the best way to do that was to actually veil the whole thing. So then it sort of once you veil that whole thing, then it's a loaded symbol. If you think of like how the veil's used historically, it's used as like a veil of the deaf, which is like one of the greatest mysteries. And then also the veil can be used as a way of, like in this piece over here, to create a really dynamic sort of force within the work as well. So I found it a great technique that I could really manipulate and use in ways I'd never thought of before. And then in a really unconscious way, using the stag, I found I had a whole historical reference for my family tree, because my father is from Denmark, and then my grandfather was a ranger for the king of Denmark, and he used to actually hunt deer with him. So I remember seen all these images of antlers in a room which held a great mystery to me as well, and wondered how I could relate to that. So suddenly out of this work sprung this whole other sort of opportunity to investigate my heritage. So that was a real tipping point for me, that piece. And so also with that connection with nature, what I try to do is reveal forces in nature. So what I'm trying to do is make the invisible visible in nature. So like with that element of wind, that energy of wind, or I try to do with that piece, like, so there's something in the way is really sort of facing some energy and some force. And so on a real formal level, that whole sweeping motion of the veil can really elevate, make the piece a very theatrical piece, or make it very dramatic, or just really energize the piece. And I found, looking at Bernini's work and the way he sculpted marble and the way he used veils, was again like this, basically using that same technique as a way of really leading your eye around the sculpture and really infusing it with a really dramatic force and energy. So I try and do that with all the pieces where I can you can really just on that formal level, it's got that real sweeping motion, and to me it really brings the sculpture alive as your eye follows around it.